Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Friday, May 9th, 2025. This is The Excerpt. Today, there's an American Pope, plus Trump shakes up leadership at FEMA, and we discuss this week's trade deal between the U.S. and UK.
Habemus Papam.
We have a Pope. That ancient declaration marks a new beginning for the Catholic Church. Chicago native Robert Prevost is now Leo XIV and the 267th Bishop of Rome. Visiting Americans in the area were overjoyed.
Having the leader of the Catholic Church be from the same country as I am, I just felt very proud.
Oh my God, I'm so happy and so special. My heart is so full.
I actually met him in California, in San Diego. He was a good man.
I think it's going to be a great thing for America to help bring Americans and bring peace to the world. So I'm hoping that he's going to help bring that about.
But who is this new Pope? For more on that, I'm joined by USA Today national correspondent Phaedra Treffin. Hello, Phaedra. Thanks for hopping on today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So who is Pope Leo XIV, and just kind of what's his general background? Let's start there.
Well, Leo XIV is the first American Pope, which is really notable. He is a Chicago native. He most recently had a Vatican post. He has a bachelor's degree from Villanova University just outside Philadelphia and a master's in divinity from the Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. In addition to that, he holds a doctorate in canon law and served for a long time in Peru in various capacities there.
You mentioned this is the first American Pope. What really is the significance of that, and what does this mean for American Catholics in particular?
It's hard to say because Americans have never seen themselves reflected in a pope. It was a little surprising because I think a lot of people thought that the next pope would come from the developing world. There was a pope from Africa who was in the running. There was a pope from the Philippines who was in the running. And of course, there are always Italians who are in the running because popes for the last several hundred years were Italian up until Pope John Paul II, and then Pope Benedict and Pope Francis, of course, who was the first pope from the Americas.
You mentioned the late Pope Francis, who he succeeds, someone who was really seen as groundbreaking in a lot of ways, right, Phaedra? How was Francis considered, as you wrote, the people's pope? And is there a sense that Pope Leo XIV will carry on that legacy?
Well, Pope Francis was the people's pope because he really had a common touch. And he really was someone who emphasized humility in the priesthood and the ability to reach out to regular people. He was very sympathetic to the marginalized, to refugees, and to immigrants, and to the poor. I think that Pope Leo will probably reflect those issues as well. During his time in Peru, he ministered to a lot of Venezuelan refugees who were in that country. He also has talked a lot about and written a lot about social justice issues, environmentalism. So I think we may see a continuation of a lot of Pope Francis's positions.
And is there any sense on how he might differ from Francis at this point?
He has been a little more reticent on the issue of LGBTQ plus people. Pope Francis struck a very non-judgmental tone and a much more welcoming tone, especially relative to his predecessors and to the Catholic Church at large. Leo has been a little bit reticent on that issue, so I think we'll have to take a wait and see approach on that.
I'm always curious how these names are chosen. How does one go about choosing a pope name?
Well, popes can choose a name that holds some meaning for them. So some popes have chosen names of their predecessors, which is why you have so many popes that have long Roman numerals after their names. Some popes will choose names based on a saint or something that reflects their homeland or their values or their culture. Pope Francis chose Francis because of Francis of Assisi, who ministered to the poor. And he said in interviews that he was told, don't forget the poor. And that was what made him think of St. Francis of Assisi. Pope Leo appears to have taken the name because there have been a lot of other Pope Leos, and the most recent one wrote a lot about social justice and workers' rights. And it seems as if this Pope Leo may have drawn inspiration from that.
Phaedra, what are some of the challenges or the issues at the church that he'll inherit?
Predominantly dwindling numbers, especially in industrialized countries and in the developed world where there's been a marked turn towards secularization, especially in the United States and Europe. There are a lot of people who identify as none, meaning they don't really have a religion. The church also has to modernize itself. There are a lot of people who feel that it's not as in touch with the real world, with the modern world. So I think that's going to be something that Pope Leo is going to have to contend with. And also, there is still ongoing fallout from the Catholic sex abuse scandal, the clergy sex abuse scandal as well.
All right, Phaedra Trethan is a national correspondent with USA Today. Thank you, Phaedra.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
The Trump administration is shaking up leadership at the Federal Emergency Management Agency a day after the acting administrator said he opposed abolishing the agency, which Trump had suggested. Cameron Hamilton will no longer be acting FEMA administrator, according to a Department of Homeland Security spokesperson who did not give a reason for the change. David Richardson is taking over the job. Hamilton this week had told a House committee hearing about eliminating FEMA that he does not believe eliminating the agency is in the best interest of the American people. The comments were a notable break from the rhetoric of President Trump and other administration officials who during his second term have largely remained publicly supportive of his messaging. President Trump touted a breakthrough trade deal between the U.S. and United Kingdom as he announced the first agreement since he imposed major tariffs last month.
With this deal, the UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade.
I caught up with USA Today White House reporter Zach Anderson to learn more. Zach, thanks for hopping on.
Glad to be here.
So, Zach, what do we know about this trade deal with the UK?
So the biggest aspects of the deal are that Trump is lowering the tariffs on foreign autos for cars from the United Kingdom. The administration had levied a 25% tariff on foreign cars. It's only going to be 10% for cars from the UK up to 100,000 cars. And they're also, according to UK officials, eliminating steel tariffs on steel coming from the United Kingdom. And then they are maintaining a 10% universal tariff on all goods from the UK. For the US, this is about getting increased access to the UK market for certain agricultural products. And there's a bunch of other details that are a little bit vaguer right now.
All right, so how did the respective leaders, President Donald Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, frame this, Zach?
They both framed this as a huge win, as a big deal. Trump really wants to get a victory here. He's been under a lot of pressure. He announced these big reciprocal tariffs on a slew of countries back in April, but then the market started to tank and there was a lot of economic uncertainty, and he paused the tariffs. And he said that he paused it because countries wanted to negotiate, and he paused it for 90 days and said he's going to negotiate with all these countries. Well, we're a month into those 90 days, and there was a lot of questions that the president had been getting about when he's going to sign a deal. So he was under a lot of pressure. The financial analysts were really looking at this. Corporations were looking at this. What's happening? Is there an off-ramp from some of these tariffs? There are some who are skeptical of whether this is all that significant. There are much bigger trading partners for the U.S., and the actual details of this people are going to scrutinize, but Trump is really claiming a big victory here.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual impact, Zach, what do we expect in terms of consumers and I guess what this means for these two economies, at least?
Well, if you're buying a luxury British car, it'll help you. Your tariffs are definitely going down on those cars. Those are already very expensive cars, so I'm not sure how many consumers that'll help. One thing that we saw after this is markets responded favorably. Major stock indexes were all up in trading immediately after the announcement of this trade deal, up around 1 percentage point with the S&P 500 and the Dow. So that was a sign that financial experts are hopeful that this is going to be something that gets the ball rolling on future deals.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, Zach, what's the sense on whether this could be a spark plug for some other deals down the pike?
I think that's still a big question that's really up in the air. Trump was asked about that. When are other trade deals coming? He said that he's got other deals in the works, but there's sort of a special relationship between the U.S. and the United Kingdom. It's a really long-standing, close partnership. Trump seems to have soft feelings for the UK, so this might have been an easier deal to negotiate. There's much bigger trading partners like Canada, Mexico, and specifically China, where it's not clear what's going to happen there. There's still a huge trade war happening. The U.S. is levying 145% tariffs on Chinese goods. China has retaliated. That was really escalating. And now there's the first signs of de-escalation, with the Treasury Secretary going to Switzerland and expected to meet with Chinese officials over there and get trade negotiations started. And Trump said that he expects those talks to be very substantial. But, it's not clear how close deals are with other countries, although the Treasury Secretary did say in a congressional committee this week that the U.S. is negotiating with all of its major trading partners, and he would expect that those deals would be done by the end of the year at the latest, and could be much sooner.
All right. Zach Anderson covers the White House for USA Today. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
President Trump's proposed budget recommends chopping more than $32 billion across agencies charged with monitoring weather, oceans, and the atmosphere, and protecting natural and historic resources, parks, and conservation lands, according to a USA Today analysis. The cuts echo an array of actions already taken by federal agencies and the President's Department of Government Efficiency. The Environmental Protection Agency, for example, faces a 54.5% proposed cut, taking its budget to a level last seen when Ronald Reagan was president. The proposed cuts in other environmental-related spending range from 15 to 55% across federal agencies. You can read more from this analysis with a link in today's show notes. And thanks for listening to The Excerpt. We're produced by Shannon Ray Green and Kaylee Monahan, and our executive producer is Laura Beatty. You can get the podcast wherever you get your pods, and if you're on a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm Taylor Wilson. I'll be back tomorrow with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.